Hi everyone, it's Lynn Norusis with the Focus on Nova team with Century 21 Redwood Realty, and today we are talking about easy organization tips, and I'm super excited to have my friend Janet Schiesl with me. She is the founder of Basic Organization, and she is here to give us some great tips to help you guys get organized.
Yes. So I'm going to give you 3 tips today, and really there are 3 sayings that you may know some of them. And so this is when you are decluttering your house when then you want to organize, because it is 2 steps. So the first one we're going to talk about is one that you may be very familiar with. It's a place for everything and everything in its place. So I've heard of that one?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So
I would love to practice it a little bit more.
Well, when you are decluttering and you're looking through your items and you're reviewing everything, when you decide you're going to keep something, where's it going to live? We ask people, that's a question I use all the time with clients. Where's this going to live? The idea is it needs to live where you need it, where you're going to be looking for it. So, you really, one real easy one is kitchen items are really obvious that they need to be in the kitchen.
Right.
But where do you pay your bills? So that's where your mail should go. Where do you do your reading? That's where your reading material should live. That kind of thing. And we've run into all different circumstances with clients. We just want to make it work for them. So that's why we said, where do you use this? Where will you need it?
And I think it's good to know, because I know I'm guilty of this, which I would imagine other people are too, is you can have a certain area of set up in your house, designed beautifully, of that's where I'm going to do this. But in reality, that's probably not where you actually do some of the stuff.
Right.
So realistically, where are you going to do the stuff?
So yeah, so that's the first part, right? A place for everything, and then everything in its place is the organization part of that statement. Because being organized only means, let's start with, it doesn't mean that you are always going to have the neat and tidy, perfect house. Every area of every house gets out of order sometimes, and things get a little chaotic. But the everything in its place means that there is a home for every item. So it makes it easier to get back to a good spot in your home. If everything has a place to go, then you can walk through your house and this goes here and this goes here and this goes here. It's also really helpful if you're not living alone, if you have more than one person in your house. So you don't get the, Mom, where is the... If it has a place and you put it away, so that's everybody in the household needs to really practice that routine of putting everything away, and then everything is in its place.
Yes.
So
yes, good tips for all of us to keep in mind on a daily basis, because it would be, if for instance mail comes in, you sort it real quick, you put it over there, you don't have to go through all of your mail right away, but when you go sit down on whatever day that you tend to do your bills, it's all there, so you don't have to go search the house for it.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Okay, statement number 2 is organizing is a social activity, so make it a social activity, and which people don't realize that, so a lot of people are not like me and they don't like to organize. And so to do it solely, it really becomes a real negative experience, and there's a lot of self-talk going on in your head when you're reviewing things, and oh, do I really need this? I don't know. Because you have an emotional attachment to everything.
Yep.
But the dynamic really changes when there's a second person in the room and you're having an actual out loud conversation about these things. So that's where working with an organizer is really helpful for people, because for some people, working with your partner or your daughter or your neighbor would work, but for other people, no, it's not gonna work. They want to take sole responsibility of making these decisions, and they also don't want somebody to come with some history or background with them. So, when we go in and work with somebody, my sole goal is for you to be happy at the end of the appointment, and to find a system that's going to work for you. So the idea of keeping it a social activity, you need to find the right partner to work with.
Yes, but not the person who's gonna help you keep the things that you don't really need to be keeping.
Right, or remember this, and you talk about an item for a minute or two, and then the next item for a minute or two, and the next item for a minute or two. All of a sudden, your whole afternoon is gone, and you haven't really gotten very far. Which you want to try to be as efficient as possible.
Right.
to
And
get
now
to
you
that
might
point.
even have more of an emotional attachment to it.
I know, friends can talk you out of getting rid of something
Right.
really easily. So again, make it a social activity. It just makes it more fun for you, and just an easier process for you. So do that. Okay, so number 3 is something that your clients are going to relate to tremendously, is when you are reviewing your items to declutter your house, act as though you're moving.
Very helpful.
So there are only 3 answers to a question of, do I need this? It's either yes or no, or the hardest one, maybe.
Right.
Maybe. So the yes and no's are really easy. Like, no, I don't need that anymore in my life. Yes, I need to keep that in my life. So the maybes are where you start to think, well, I might need it in the future. I'm saving it just in case, right? But if you are actually moving, boy, you have a stake in how much you keep of those maybes.
Definitely.
Because moving can be very expensive and time consuming. So if you are considering something, think about, okay, am I willing to pay to pack this up, to have movers move it, and then to unpack it? So you're either paying with your money or your time, whether if you're going to do it yourself, right?
Yep.
And so you really have to think about it. So whether you're moving or not, you can ask those questions. Would I pay to move this? And a lot of times if it's not worth that amount of money to you, then you really don't have to keep it. Right?
That's a really good way of thinking about things, is do I want to pay to keep this thing? Because it does, it all does add up. And I know that one of the big things also is, people do think, well, maybe one day I'll use it, especially coming out of COVID with clothes.
Right.
A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to get rid of it because if I end up having to go back into the office. But you know what? The world has changed, and I have found personally that anytime I hold on to something to be like, well, maybe, it always ends up being a no.
Yeah.
So.
And again, consider the moving is something that is like increases the importance of things, but also if you're hanging on to things, even if you're not moving, right? If you're hanging on to things just for maybe, you have to consider how much space that is taking up in your home. And if your garage and your storage room and all your closets are packed, to the gills, then you're hanging on to stuff that you aren't using, and you're just hanging on to for future possibilities. And you let those things go so you have space to live in your space. Yep. So that's really what we try to help our clients accomplish, is to be able to live the way they want to in their space.
Wonderful. All right. Well, Janet, thank you so much for sharing these tips with us. Hopefully you guys can take some of these tips away with you and start working on them so you can be a little bit more organized in your life. I know all of us want to be more organized, and because it does end up lead to a happier life, just because then you're not having to do all this organization later if you do little by little each day. So thank you very much. I am Lynn Norusis with the Focus on Nova team, and we will be back every month with some more home tips.